Lisa.
All right, on to the war in Ukraine. Mr. Kenyatta, as the next senator of Pennsylvania, you would represent one of the largest Ukrainian populations in the country. President Biden today announced an additional $800 million for heavy artillery and ammunition for Ukrainian forces. Do you support the United States taking on an expanded role and providing more military aid? You have 60 seconds, sir.
So anytime we talk about Ukraine, we have to first do two things. First, acknowledge the incredible heroism and bravery that we're seeing not only from the Ukrainian forces, but from everyday citizens who are stepping up to defend and protect their democracy. Right in my district, I have the Ukrainian Archdiocese, the Catholic Archdiocese, right in my district, and I've been talking to people about how painful this experience has been. And this was one of the reasons I endorsed President Biden on the day he announced this campaign, earlier than anybody on this stage, because I felt like he would be prepared for a moment like this. He's rallied the international community, helped to isolate Vladimir Putin, and I think the additional aid that he's doing, that he announced today, is going to be critical. We need to make sure that Ukraine has more assistance from NATO in terms of aircraft from our allies like in Poland, and that we continue to look at every single way that we can ratchet up the pressure on Vladimir Putin, particularly as he's engaged in what amounts to a genocide in Mariupol.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fetterman, same question. Do you agree with President Biden's announcement to send more military aid to Ukraine?
I do. I do. And I also applaud President Biden in being able to rally the world community to impose sanctions that have helped cripple the Russian economy, and to impose further sanctions to make sure that Russia is punished in a manner that is commensurate with the war of aggression, on Ukraine. I think the most important issue here from an American perspective is we need to support Ukraine every way we can, whether that's like aid that President Biden released today and weapons, but we cannot, under any circumstances, risk having this escalate into a hot war with Russia. That's, to me, the overriding concern here is that, we want to help the people of Ukraine, but what would definitely not help the people of Ukraine is that this slid into World War III, and this turns into a hot war with Russia. We cannot afford to take that risk, and I think President Biden is wise to make sure that that is a clear red line that he will not cross.
All right, Mr. Lamb, I see you nodding as well. 60 seconds. Do you support the U.S. sending more heavy artillery to ammunition for Ukrainian forces?
I do, absolutely. And while I share John's concerns about, a nuclear exchange, I think that this administration is cautious and mature enough to prevent that. I believe that the explicit and stated policy of the United States should be that Ukraine will win this war with our assistance, no matter how long it takes and no matter what it takes. And that's because I think this is about a lot more than just Ukraine. I think that the world is basically dividing itself between democracies and autocracies. And what's different about this than the Cold War is that this time the autocracies have a lot more economic and technological might on their side. And so in the future, we really are going to need to knit together the free world to be one trading bloc, one economic bloc, one human rights bloc, and even one military bloc to withstand the pressure that that's going to create and protect our people and protect our interests. We can do that best by showing the resolve to win this war and send the Russians and Putin back where they came from.
All right, I have a follow-up for all three of you, but we'll begin with you, Mr. Kenyatta. Is there a line that Russia could cross at which point you would support the official deployment of American troops as part of this conflict? You have 30 seconds to respond.
I do not support sending troops to Ukraine. If you do that, we get the opposite of the result that we need. The result that we need is for Vladimir Putin to recognize the folly of this war, to be held accountable at the ICC, and to actually put Ukraine on a path to rebuild, for people who are refugees right now to be able to come home and reunite families. If you send in American troops, then you are not ratcheting down the temperature, you're ratcheting it up.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, same question. Is there a line where you would support sending American troops to Ukraine?
I wouldn't. As I answered earlier, my primary concern is this escalating into a hot war. And that's something that would, of course, be catastrophic for Ukraine, but it would be catastrophic for the world. So I would not support sending U.S. troops into the situation, which could easily, continually escalate into a set of circumstances beyond our control.
Mr. Lamb, same question, 30 seconds. Is there a point where you would see the official deployment of American forces in Ukraine?
The line for me is NATO. We are bound by the NATO treaty to defend our NATO allies with troops as they defended us in Afghanistan, by the way. And so I think if Putin took a shot at Poland or moved into Romania or even sent destructive drones into those places to try to brush us back, then I think we would use our troops by any means necessary to protect our NATO allies and the Ukrainians. And that would be an escalation caused by Vladimir Putin, not chosen by us.